going on?
We're going to talk about, Kobie and I have been, Kobie's a general partner at Upfront Ventures, one of the largest venture firms in Los Angeles. And he and I have talked about community every week for every Monday afternoon for the past 5 years.
Yeah, it's been a while.
First, I wanted to just talk about, okay, we talked a little bit about the sneaker community. What other communities are you in, would you say, that you participate in outside of just, some of the work stuff or the companies you invest in?
Yeah, well, first off, it's amazing to be here in person, to be in real life versus on a Bevy screen, Zoom screen. Like, you can't substitute in-person interaction, and everyone that's watching online, we definitely want to see here next year. In terms of communities that I personally identify with, I grew up running track, and it's a huge part of my life. So the athletics community is honestly what kind of partially defines me as a person, both in terms of the mindset I take towards life, work, and other sort of facets of just going about my day to day. I also, oddly enough, found myself in a community without even knowing it. So I actually, this early this year, bought a Bronco, and suddenly I was driving around and I started seeing people.
A car,
yeah, no, not a horse, yeah, not that kind of Bronco. But it'd be kind of weird, riding a Bronco down the Sunset in LA. But so I was driving a Bronco, and I started seeing other people that had Broncos, just like flashing their lights, just like doing a little kind of hey, and I'm like, oh, I guess I'm now in this community. It's kind of cool. So I see someone else do that. It's like, hey, we're kind of have some mutual common bond with one another.
Do you have a move that you make when you see another Bronco person?
Not really,
Is it? No. Do you just kind of go like this?
Maybe do like that. I don't know. It's just whatever comes to mind.
I see the Bronco people out there. All right, so I want to talk. You've been involved in communities for a long time. You're an early investor in Oculus. You were the CMO at Revolve. You've invested in a lot of community companies. As an investor, why? What is the financial part of investing in community companies that made sense to you? I would say long before it became a cool thing to do.
Yeah, the way at least I think generally about life, life it's not a single player sport; it's a multiplayer sport, and to think about you're going to be starting a business and you're going to go about building a company without taking into account the people that are going to allow you to achieve whatever goals, KPIs, outcomes, unicorn status you're looking to achieve. It's all based on bringing those folks together and fostering community, fostering an environment where your brand and what you stand for can be experienced outside of the four walls of your organization, but in real life amongst other people that identify with that. So for me, the way I think about community for organizations, it's you have to have it. It's something that you have and you actually many times don't realize because these communities develop on their own. So the smartest organizations are the ones that actually invest in communities, foster them, and empower the members of the community to really, truly act in a way that's in accordance with the community's goals. And when I think about whether it be when we met first and talking about Bevy, I saw in person the community of startup grind that you built and the power of what that meant to be able to have a community help propel a business. So to me, it's just one of the key elements I look for when looking at companies.
So, most of us don't get pitched by dozens of startups on a monthly basis or weekly basis. Are you, now mid-2022 versus go back to mid-2017 or 2018, what is are you seeing community being included in pitches, and is it sort of a core part of startup strategy more now, or how much more now than it was 5 or 6 years ago?
Yeah, I'd say it's not a core part yet. It's not like a mainstream. Everyone's like, oh, here's my community strategy.
Community slide.
Yeah, no, I mean, people may throw in the consumer brand, what's my influencer strategy? And it's okay, it's the smartest thing would be here's my community strategy, which influencers are a subset of a community. You think about your community, they are influencers. They do impact how your product's being perceived, how people are moved to actually transact. Some of the smartest pitches I do see, though, are ones where an organization went to the effort, even at the earliest of the stages pre-seed, to either build their own community, and they're starting to put together events, whether it be in real life or virtual, to foster some sort of connectivity. Or sometimes they realize that, hey, this community that's pre-existing in a category that's very strategic to me, I'm going to go there and potentially partner with them to get out of the gate fast in figuring out where they have product market fit, or in some cases, maybe merge with those communities because they see it a core element for what that business does.
I know probably early on, and you saw pitches from companies like Roblox and Twitch, like at the earliest stage. How did you convince people that didn't get community in your industry? How did you explain that to them, or as the CMO, how did you empower creating community inside the products that you were building?
Yeah, for me, I think a lot of it goes down to, like, honestly, the numbers and the ROI, like what outcomes you're able to affect by building community. So, for instance, during my days as CMO at Revolve, a lot of what was important is building community amongst influencers as we were looking to find ways to more profitably scale customer acquisition in a world where we were saturating all the channels around like CPC and paid marketing, and creating an influencer community where essentially a group of highly just sought after, impressive fashion influencers are wearing the product that we then brought into these environments, whether it be parties, trips around the world, or whatever it may have you. It created a natural community where it didn't look fabricated. Like, these are groups of people we brought together naturally that enjoyed being with one another and partying amongst the Revolve brand, and you just saw it as almost like this public show on social media in a way where we were able to get a significant amount of brand impressions that continue to drive growth. And they took that playbook and to like orders of magnitude more levels, and that's what fuels so much of that business today. So communities amongst influencers was a key area, but it came down to like, what is the outcome? It's brand impressions, it's conversions, and ultimately sales. And I think about communities right now and how important they can be in a world where it's super, super expensive and hard to acquire customers profitably on existing channels, whether it be Instagram, TikTok, or LinkedIn, and a world also where a lot of your audiences that live on these channels, if you even push a message out, the algorithms are deprioritizing organic content for paid content in a world where only 7% of posts that you post will actually get viewed on Instagram, at least. Being able to actually own your own community, own your own audience, and effectively talk to them in free reins without these intermediaries putting you out of place because they're trying to make ad revenue. It's so much more of an opportunity right now to figure out how to own your own audience and build your own communities in a way where if you could show to the C-suite and the board, like, look at what we built, and this is how we can use this to drive ROI, leads, opportunities, or conversions within a consumer setting. To me, it's one of the most important things I'm trying to push on my portfolio companies to invest under.
Yeah, and it's interesting because we've seen Facebook and Google CPMs going up. It's getting more expensive to acquire new customers on those channels. But I would say we in community haven't been able to sort of take advantage of that yet, at least that I've seen with a lot of companies. It hasn't like moved from that bucket to then, oh yeah, we should just build our own community and do this in-house, and for all the reasons that you just described. What do you like? What could we do? Like, what would be the pitch you would make if you were running a community to take to the CMO to say, look, like, take some of your Facebook and Google spend, invest it in the community because X, Y, Z. Like, how would you frame that?
So I'd say it partially depends on whether you have a community or not. So if you already have a pre-existing community that has engagement in it, but for some reason or another you haven't been able to translate that engagement into quantifiable metrics that the C-suite, the CMO, the CRO would be able to actually look at and be like, oh, I know the value of an MQL or an SQL or an opportunity or a lead within sort of any sort of funnel within a conversion flow for a consumer setting. Like, try to find a way to try to translate into the language that the C-suite actually looks at in terms of what they already have budget investing under. So if you're able to find a world where your community is able to generate at a much more effective CPA versus the traditional marketing channels, smart leaders are willing to pour dollars into that all day long. And so the way I think about it is just try to find ways to actually just translate into the same language so that it's not this like fuzzy object like, oh, we have a community and that's cool for brand building, but we have no idea what that means. Like, one of the biggest problems right now is people want to find more opportunities in the funnel, or they want to find more eyeballs that are being converted down the conversion path. So if you can actually insert yourself more clearly into that flow, I think it's a very great time to be in that place.
Yeah.
And then if you can also find ways in which, if you're investing in community and you don't have one just yet, just paint the picture. It's like, what if we wake up a year from now and we own an audience of like 20,000 people directly in our ICP that we can engage in the right way, that has some probability of converting into like this funnel that probably would pay for itself if you give me X dollars. I think a lot of people, if you pitch it out the right way, would be willing to do that versus, oh, let's just torch some cash on like LinkedIn ads and hope for the best.
Yeah, and I think the conversation has changed more and more from a year or a year and a half ago of like, just grow it, like do whatever you need to do to grow. It doesn't matter, to now it's like, okay, like it's very specific. You're spending this much, you're getting this much out. Like it's just everything's gotten so much, the requirements have gotten so much tighter.
Yes.
Which it was already hard in many ways for our industry to get what we need. And so, but I think people are looking for creative solutions at a low cost or reasonable cost to grow the user base. And, the ads, in some way, it works for some people. A lot of people it doesn't. But building our own internal sort of channel, doing it in the way, as you said, like being able to message them and to reach out to them as we need and as they need, versus sort of being under, the sort of control of a larger group. Like, there's so much value that can be created there. You've just got to paint it in the right. I love that idea, the right language.
The right language. And so whether it's it depends also how it aligns to the strategic priorities of the company. So whether it's is using the right language for the go-to-market side, or maybe there's value around how community could help within a world where customer service and support is becoming really incredibly difficult. So you can use your community to help the existing sort of user base learn from one another. There's so many different ways in which you could leverage community for value within an organization, to the point where it's like, I just don't understand why smart companies are not investing in community, because it's so much the fabric of your organization. And your community is not only your customers, it's your employees, it's your partners. It's like the lifeblood of any company.
So you've invested in community companies, you've helped build communities inside of companies, and then you started your own community with Valence.
Yeah.
Maybe you could just tell people what Valence is, and then sort of what you learned going from, in some ways, having some of that infrastructure sitting on the outside to being in the weeds. How did it change your perspective?
Yeah, so building community is hard, so I have a great appreciation for it. So like, as Derek said, I started a community accidentally a couple years ago, where I was really focused on trying to create a platform that would connect Black professionals with one another, in addition to funding opportunities if they're starting a company, or jobs, or board roles. It was called Valence. It's called Valence, and it essentially was almost like a test or experiment that got a lot of feedback, to a point where we launched it and straight out of the gate had 5,000 members gravitate to this online experience that also had in real life component. Ultimately, we raised a Series A from GGV, and we're really kind of trying to scale this thing in a way where it was not only building community, but also creating a learning environment to upskill professionals at really key points in their career. And as we went through the process of building Valence, I realized once the community started getting to 20,000, 25,000, like creating the right engagement, like why do people come to the community, what do they do, and just having that sort of continual management, because communities they're constantly moving, they're constantly going. And I was partially helping manage Valence, while I apparently have a daytime job as a VC and board member at Bevy, and I realized like, no, this is a full-time sport. We had a full-time team on as well, but it was one where it's hard. It's just really hard. It was really, really hard to build a community. But I feel very fortunate and grateful that we were able to continue to build a community. We merged with another larger community than Valence called The Gathering Spot, which is more focused on in real life experiences. That's also part of an umbrella company called Greenwood, which is now a community of almost 1 million Black people within sort of the realm of consumer banking. And our mission is to really be very aggressive around how we could cultivate and bring this community together through the power of modern technology and just being able to provide a space to provide knowledge to a body of people that for some reason didn't have it provided to them.
The thing that that I really love about Valence is it's so clear the problems that it helps solve. It's just like, we do this thing, and if you need help doing this, come here. For us at Bevy, it was getting executives, Black executives, better training, getting them peer groups. So our head of HR, our head of design, our head of compliance, our head of finance, giving them a place to level up their skills, but also to network with other people who are doing the same thing in tech. And it was just very focused and very clear, and created, I think, huge benefit to our team.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And the reason why partially I wanted to create Valence is that I wanted to create an impact within the Black community, and I realized that for me to get leverage out of my time, like, I only could meet with so many people, either one-on-one or within like a group setting. So what's the best way in which I could actually provide a space where people could learn from one another, and we could create just a scalable approach towards solving the problem around Black professionals and Black people getting access to wealth? And to me, I was like, that's community. And so here's stories around members within the Valence community finding one another and then collaborating, whether it be like sending them some material lead that resulted in a very big, large account that gets closed, to people coming together to build companies, to folks getting board roles. Like, I didn't have to be in that flow. It was through creating a community where there were many to many were able to just create magic, which to me is super exciting. You can't do that without a community platform.
Yeah. I wonder if we could just go back to this idea around, like, how do we get more resources? How do we get a bigger piece of the marketing pie? You're sitting in these board meetings, you're listening to these conversations across all sorts of different industries and companies, and I'm just wondering, like, the people and the groups right now that are getting the resources, that are being heard, that are being listened to, are you seeing any other sort of trends or thoughts around who's being successful with that? And are there clear lines of, like, these are the people that are winning in the current very difficult climate, and these are the people that aren't winning?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. It's an evolving dynamic. I mean,
yeah, it changes. It's changing every month.
Yeah, I mean, things are tough. Yeah. I mean, it's a tough time to say that people are operating in a world where they're having all these massive tailwinds and everything's up and to the right and super easy. Is just not the environment for 99% of people are out there going to work. And to say it's someone's having an easy job getting resources, getting allocations, people are cutting back, people are cutting burn, people are trying to be more efficient. And the thing that I would say is that you just need to have an approach around ROI and efficiency. How this tactic, this approach, is not only long-term strategic, but short-term is an efficient, productive, and ROI positive use of capital. Mm-hmm. And if you can't make the argument for that, you're just going to have a much harder time prioritizing getting resources, because that's where all resources are going. Like, what is going to be the immediate ROI here? And if we can't measure it, then it's going to be a bit tougher.
Yeah, and look, building a community is all about playing the long game.
Yeah.
So I think it's sort of matching that with the sort of the core foundation of doing the things that we need to do that will get people coming back month after month, year after year, but then also mixing in these pieces of short-term gain. And that could be a sort of, that could be doing a big event or something where it's like, hey, I can drive value in the next 30 days through this program. Yep. And it could be, a sort of email driving to a discussion that is going to generate a lot of activity and is going to ultimately lead to more sales. I know we have a lot of people here in technology, not everyone, but some of these products are, $10 to $100,000 to use, and so it's like, look, I only need to convert a couple of people. If your product is $500 a year product, it's going to be harder to show that ROI. But if you're like, hey, look, I've got to get 2 or 3 deals, I can show the ROI here in a small scale with a sort of singular experience, and then I can use the data around that to proof points. Say, look, if we do this 5x, 10x, I don't need it. I can do it, or my team and I can do it, or I can get somebody to help, in the short term, so I don't need to have more headcount. Let's do this at 5. Let's do this at 10 increments, and then okay, hey, look, this, and I think as you said, like, here's what it looks like when we win next year with the 20,000 people that do it. But I think that thought of like, I've got to show in the next 30 days, this is how it creates value without jeopardizing the long-term sort of, ethos of the community and like, trying to like win short-term and sacrifice the future.
I think that's right. I think one of the biggest things to take into account is just alignment with the organization. So why are you building this community, and what are the strategic goals of the organization, and are you aligned with those? Because if you're not, if one of the strategic goals is, oh, we need to figure out some notion of how to architect better product market fit because what we currently have is not converting so well, then maybe a goal around building a community to drive SQLs, MQLs, and opportunities is not as effective as building a community that could be a great substitute for an investment in user research or just understanding qualitative data and feedback around a product that then could be fed to PM. So again, it all depends on what is most important to an organization and how to insert yourself into that flow through the power of a community. And the great thing about a community is it's applicable and relevant to so many facets of a company. So I'd say just be very smart around what are the key things that the company is focusing on in both the near-term quarters and long-term, and just try to find a way to align yourself with that, because communities are very adaptable in terms of the impact they can create.
I think too, like a lot of us got into community because it had nothing to do with marketing qualified lead or a sales qualified lead. That's not why I started my community or why I am involved in the Little League community or whatever. Like, I do it because like I care about it, I'm passionate about it, and so, and that's what makes, I think, a lot of people in this room great, and in the CMX community incredible, because they're doing it all for the right reasons. But in the times like this, it's like, as I'm hearing you talk about SQLs and MQLs, which I've learned about over the last couple of years, like, I'm thinking, if I'm not wholly comfortable of living in that world right now, like, I got to go jump in there fast. And I've got to go make that case fast, because, and we know we've all seen these people that come into communities and they salesify it, they sort of rip out the soul of it in order to extract short-term gains. But I know that I'm not going to do that. And so, like, I've got to go in and speak that person's language. I got to understand these things better than them. I've got to reorientate the work I'm doing in the new world that exists in the fall of 2022. And we don't know it as somebody, like, people in Europe are going to be worried about their heat this fall. We don't know what's coming next in the spring. So I got to get there now, because I need it now, and I may really need it in 9 months. And so I've got to try and get ahead, and I'm the sort of front lines of understanding that and talking about it in a way, framing it in the right way, to then make sure that I keep the integrity of what we've built, and that people still love to be a part of it for the reasons that they've loved it.
Yeah, and it's a good point. I was going to try to emphasize the fact also there's this data-oriented aspect around how to justifiably invest and get support for a growing community, but then you can't lose the qualitative, the soul around why the community exists. And in a moment in time right now where, times are incredibly tough, and some organizations' morale is really low, there may be, rifts at play, and people are just trying to find, a few wins. To have a community that can uplift the teams, the customers, the partners, the entire ecosystem that the organization's a part of. There's a lot of intangible value there that I wouldn't take for granted, because that morale, that just mindset that you can leverage with the power of a community to get everyone focused on the right things that matter in a world right now where, like, it's all about sort of surviving, getting through the next 12 to 18, 24 months of what feels to be troubled times. Community can be really powerful to emotionally get people through that. So I wouldn't put that by the wayside in terms of the power and the importance that everyone in this room has, and people online listening have, in terms of being community leaders, because it's critically important.
The last thing I want to end on, and probably most people, we're doing our day-to-day, we're heads down on what we're doing. But what's happened in the venture community, in the community industry, in the last 4 or 5 years, like, I can't understate how incredible it is. And, to see companies, success is not raising funding. Success is delivering a service that customers love, and bringing value in people's lives and creating value. But usually, a lot of times, the investment dollars precede, some of the big customer and product gains. And I don't know, for me, like, to see companies, many who are exhibiting here today, and many who aren't, when I've seen the money that's been poured into our industry, and it's not just the money, but the people, like really, really smart people coming into our industry, like, I get so excited about that. I'm happy for those people to compete against us specifically. I honestly, if I see a competitor raising funding and really smart people working in it, I genuinely am excited, because it means, like, we're getting the best people in the world working on the problems that we all face, and that's going to create positive outcomes. I don't know exactly what, and it's going to be up and down.
Yep.
But, like, I wonder if you could just, as we finish, like, seeing our industry now from where you and I started working together when you invested in 2018, but to see what's happened, like, it's not like most industries, right? So could you just help us understand?
Yeah, I mean,
that?
I think you said a lot of it, honestly.
Sorry.
It's no, it's good. So it's like, I don't know if I can stop that, but I mean, you said it. I mean, the number of companies, the number of venture dollars that are flowing into the platforms, the tools, the communities themselves that are going to define the way people interact, whether it be in real life or virtually, for the foreseeable future. It's at a very, very, very exciting time to be in and around this area. So for you and the full-on Bevy and CMX community being here for years, really pioneering a lot of what's happening right now, is amazing. But I still feel like we're in early innings.
Yeah, sorry, I agree. At the same time, like, somebody that's really incredible at building community, and somebody that's been in the trenches and now can then also has gotten out and is now strategic and can run a team. And you can put these pieces together, and you can talk to executives, and you can talk to the sales team, and you can bring value. Like, this is an incredible career, and we should all be so stoked and excited and proud to be part of building this industry. And you all have been doing it in some ways in isolation, and now I just feel like over the last few years it's coming out of that, and, like, there's so much attention being put on it. And you see, Facebook's big announcement yesterday, it's all about the community product. You see what Discord's doing. You see all these huge platforms, LinkedIn, you see what they're doing in community. Like, all the huge platforms, like, shoot, we got to be a part of this, and companies by extension are saying, shoot, and so you creating that value and connecting those dots, like, for me, like, I can't think of a better industry to be in. Last year we thought maybe we should have been building NFTs. Like, freak, we blew it. Like, why don't we, like, build the community NFT thing? And now it's like, thank goodness we never liked NFTs or so. No, I'm just kidding. NFTs are great if you're here for NFTs. Yeah, like, I just, like, I'm actually in a very dark time. Like, I'm very optimistic about what we're all building together. And
no, it couldn't be a better time in terms of
thank you.
And then also, like, and it's so amazing, again, we're getting out in real life. in real life connections, in real life communities. This is super exciting, and I think it's just an amazing time to be a community professional and be in this industry. And I'm feel privileged to be here amongst you all today. So thanks.
Kobie Fuller, thank you.